Most parents never realize when the anxiety begins. It doesn't begin with a diagnosis. It doesn't begin with a doctor. It begins with a chart. A chart on a parenting website, a milestone list on social media, a video of another baby doing something yours hasn't done yet, rolling, sitting, crawling, walking. And without noticing it, you stop experiencing your child and start auditing them. You begin to look at development the way nervous investors look at markets, scanning for visible signals, reacting to short-term movement, mistaking noise for truth. One week, your baby seems ahead. The next week, someone else's child appears to be doing more. And suddenly, what should feel like a season of connection starts to feel like a performance review. That is where the first year quietly goes wrong for so many intelligent parents. Not because they don't care enough, because they care so much that they start measuring the wrong thing. So before we go any further, I want you to consider a possibility that may immediately lower your anxiety. What if your baby is not behind at all? What if the visible milestone you're worried about is only the final public result of months of invisible private work? What if the real development is happening exactly where anxious parents are least trained to look? Because that is usually the truth. The first year is not mainly about milestones. It is about systems. And once you understand those systems, the panic begins to lose its authority. Not because you become passive, because you become accurate. That is what this video is about. Not false reassurance. Not every baby is perfect sentimentality. Clarity. The kind of clarity that changes the way you watch your baby. The kind that helps you separate variation from delay, process from appearance, and genuine concern from manufactured urgency. And stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand something most milestone charts never explain. Why babies who look late on the surface are often building exactly what they need underneath. Why smart parents get trapped by visible outputs, and what actually matters far more than whether your child does one thing at 9 months or 11. Let's begin with the most important shift. Milestones are not goals. They are markers. They are the visible evidence that an internal system has matured enough to express itself in public. That distinction matters enormously, because when parents focus only on the visible act, they miss the entire chain that makes the act possible. A baby does not simply sit. A baby builds sitting. A baby does not simply crawl. A baby builds crawling. A baby does not simply talk. A baby builds the internal architecture that eventually makes language possible. In finance, serious people understand the difference between a headline and a balance sheet. The headline gets attention. The balance sheet reveals structure. In the first year of life, milestones are headlines. Regulation, movement, and communication are the balance sheet. And if you ignore the balance sheet, you will misread the whole business. So let's zoom out. Human development in the first year is built on 3 core systems: regulation, movement, and communication. Everything your baby does grows out of those 3, not randomly, not magically, systematically. If those systems are developing, progress is happening, even when the visible milestone hasn't arrived yet. Start with regulation. Regulation is the ability to maintain balance in the body and nervous system. Breathing, temperature, hunger, arousal, stress, sleep-wake transitions. Emotional intensity. Your baby is not born fully able to manage these things alone. They borrow regulation from you. This is why the first weeks feel so relentless. Your presence is not decorative. It is biological support. When you hold your baby, soothe them, feed them, rock them, speak softly, respond to distress, you are not creating weakness. You are helping an immature nervous system find its baseline. You are teaching the body what safety feels like. And that matters because a dysregulated system does not have much energy left for learning. A regulated system does. This is where so many parents misunderstand the first year. They think development begins with skill. It doesn't. It begins with safety. A baby whose system is overwhelmed is busy surviving. A baby whose system feels organized can begin to explore. Exploration is the real engine of development. Now, think about what your baby has actually experienced in the first days and weeks of life. They have gone from darkness, warmth, and constant containment to light, sound, hunger, cold, gravity, distance, waiting, and separation. Their nervous system is learning an entirely new operating environment. So yes, the early months can look unproductive to adults obsessed with visible achievement. A newborn sleeps, startles, cries, feeds, stares, repeats. But beneath that repetitive surface, foundational work is happening at extraordinary speed. The body is learning rhythms. The brain is organizing input. The nervous system is building tolerances. Trust is beginning to form. That is not inactivity. That is infrastructure. And this leads to the second system, movement. Most adults think of movement as physical progress, stronger muscles, better coordination, a sequence of motor skills. But in the first year, movement is much more than exercise. Movement is cognition in action. Every time your baby lifts their head, shifts weight, reaches for an object, misses, recalibrates, and tries again, the brain is solving problems. Balance, prediction, sequencing, cause and effect, spatial awareness, frustration tolerance. All of that is being trained through the body. This is why the floor matters so much. The floor is not empty space. It is a laboratory. And this is also why containers, while sometimes useful, become expensive and overused. If a baby spends too much of the day being positioned rather than moving, they lose opportunities to map their body against reality. And that mapping is not optional. It is part of how intelligence becomes usable. Now let's walk through the year the right way. In the first month, the real work is not performance. It is regulation and adjustment. Reflexes dominate. Sleep is fragmented. Vision is limited. Startling is common. Tummy time may last seconds, not minutes. But those seconds matter. That is where postural control begins. That is where the body starts learning to push against gravity. Around 6 to 8 weeks, something extraordinary often happens. The social smile. Parents treat it like a sweet moment, and it is. But it is more than that. It is a neurological event. Your baby is beginning to recognize interaction as meaningful. You are no longer just warmth, milk, and comfort. You are becoming a person in their world. Soon after, cooing begins. Then back and forth sound play. Then the earliest rhythm of conversation. This is where the third system enters, communication. And communication in the first year is not mainly about words, it is about coordination. Eye contact, turn-taking, shared attention, facial expression, timing, pointing, imitation, vocal experimentation. Language begins long before speech. When your baby makes a sound and you answer, something bigger than sound is happening. The baby is learning that action creates response, that signals matter, that another mind can be engaged, that communication has structure. This is not cute background activity. It is the foundation of language, agency, and trust. By month 3, you often see stronger head control, hands coming together near the center of the body, longer periods of alert engagement, more expressive faces. To an uninformed eye, this may still look like very little. To a developmental specialist, it is deeply meaningful. Why? Because integration is happening. Both sides of the body are beginning to coordinate. Sensory input is becoming more organized. Expression is becoming less reflexive and more intentional. By month 4, Many babies begin rolling, laughing, reaching more deliberately, and bringing everything to the mouth. Parents often react to this like the baby has suddenly become chaotic. But what is actually happening is exploration. The baby is using the mouth, hands, and movement to gather information. Not because they are doing things, because they are building maps. Then comes the period when parents begin to panic about sitting. But sitting is not where sitting starts. Sitting starts in the weeks before it becomes visible, when the baby tolerates tummy time a little longer, pushes through the arms, activates the trunk, shifts weight, rotates, balances, and begins organizing the body around gravity. The visible sit is just the dividend. The real investment happened earlier. This is one of the most useful rules in the entire first year. When a milestone appears, the real work has already been underway for a long time. The same is true of crawling. Parents obsess over whether crawling has begun, what type of crawling it is, whether it counts, whether skipping it means something is wrong. But mobility matters more than style. Some babies crawl traditionally, some scoot, some roll, some drag themselves in unconventional ways. Some go straight toward pulling to stand and cruising. What matters is not whether the movement looks textbook. What matters is whether the system shows progress, initiative, curiosity, and attempts. That word matters. Attempts. Healthy development is not only visible in success, it is visible in trying. A baby who reaches and misses, rocks and falls, strains and reattempts, vocalizes and watches for response, studies and experiments. That baby is showing you a working learning system. And learning systems matter more than isolated skills. This is where milestone culture becomes so destructive. It trains parents to track public outcomes while ignoring private momentum. But private momentum is often the more important signal. Now let's talk about one of the most misunderstood periods of the first year: 7 to 9 months. This is where many babies become more emotionally intense. They may protest separation, become more sensitive to unfamiliar people, cling more, sleep differently, or react more strongly when a parent leaves the room. Many adults interpret this as regression. It isn't. It is often cognitive growth. Your baby now understands something they did not understand before. You continue to exist even when you are not visible. That realization is intellectually sophisticated and emotionally destabilizing. So yes, separation anxiety can be exhausting. But it is also evidence that the baby's mental model of reality is becoming more advanced. At the same time, imitation grows. Clapping, waving, copying sounds, responding to name, following a point. These are not party tricks. They are signs of shared attention and social learning. The baby is beginning to understand that other minds can direct attention and that behavior can be copied intentionally. This is how culture begins. This is how language deepens. This is how learning accelerates. By 9 to 12 months, movement and communication start feeding each other more directly. Pulling to stand, cruising, opening containers, dropping objects on purpose, searching for things, using a pincer grasp, responding to routines, anticipating events, signaling wants more clearly. All of this reflects a system becoming more integrated. And then, of course, there is walking, the milestone parents romanticize most. The one that makes adults feel triumphant or threatened for reasons nobody fully admits. But walking is a terrible thing to obsess over in isolation. Some babies walk earlier, some later. What matters more is the trajectory beneath it. Is the child trying to move through space? Are they pulling up, cruising, bearing weight, problem solving, communicating, experimenting? If yes, then the system may be progressing perfectly well, even if first steps have not happened on the timeline social media trained you to fear. This is where we need to separate variation from delay. Variation means the path is unfolding in a different rhythm, but momentum is present. Delay means progress is absent, stalled, or unusually restricted.
That is why the deeper question is not, has my baby done the milestone by this exact month? The deeper question is the system showing engagement, curiosity, attempts, and forward movement? That is what skilled professionals watch, not just whether a box can be checked, whether the underlying system is alive. Now let's address another dangerous myth, that early visible achievement predicts long-term superiority. Parents desperately want to believe this because it gives meaning to comparison. If early walking means future confidence, if early language means future intelligence, if early motor performance means future success, then comparison feels useful. But that is not how development works. Early timing alone tells you far less than anxious parents imagine. What matters far more over the long run is regulation, persistence, curiosity, engagement, recovery from frustration, and the quality of interaction in the child's environment. And almost none of that appears clearly on milestone charts. This is why smart parents often waste energy optimizing the wrong assets. They add more toys, more stimulation, more activities, more pressure. But development does not consolidate under pressure. It consolidates under clarity. A baby does not become stronger because adults panic more efficiently. A baby becomes stronger when the environment provides the right conditions for growth. That means emotional safety, room to move, responsive communication, repetition, manageable frustration, time to integrate. Now let's talk about overstimulation, because modern parents are especially vulnerable here. Overstimulation does not always look extreme. Often it looks normal. Constant noise, bright toys, non-stop adult interference, endless attempts to entertain, too much novelty, too little pause. But babies do not only need input, they need processing time. They need to stare, repeat, practice, return to the same action again and again. Adults get bored by repetition because adults crave novelty after mastery. Babies often grow through repetition because repetition is how mastery is built. When you interrupt repetition too quickly, you may also interrupt learning. This is why simple objects are often more useful than impressive ones. A spoon, a book, a blanket edge, a block, a box. These do not perform for the child. The child must perform with them. And that is developmentally rich. Now let's talk about you. Because at some point in the first year, the real challenge is no longer only the baby's development. It becomes your relationship to uncertainty. Can you tolerate not knowing exactly when something will emerge? Can you resist comparing invisible processes to visible performances? Can you observe before intervening? Can you let effort happen without constantly rescuing it? These may be the deepest parenting tasks of the first year. Because your job is not to force development into existence. Your job is to support the conditions under which development can unfold well. In complex systems, good operators do not obsess over outcomes they cannot directly control. They manage inputs, soil, light, water, not by pulling on the plant, but by protecting what helps growth happen. Parenting in the first year is no different. You are not the manufacturer of milestones. You are the manager of conditions. And before we finish, if this video is helping you replace anxiety with clarity, subscribe to the channel. Not for vanity metrics, for signal. Because we make these videos for people who want to think more deeply, parent more calmly, and stop getting manipulated by shallow advice. And share this video with one person who genuinely matters to you. Your partner, your sister, your brother, your closest friend. Someone with whom you want to build a wiser relationship with children. Not to correct them,
to strengthen the environment around both of you. Now let's bring this home. The first year is not a checklist. It is not a race.
It is not a quarterly report on your worth as a parent. It is foundation. A year in which regulation becomes more stable, movement becomes more intentional, and communication becomes more coordinated. A year in which your baby learns, slowly and repeatedly, that this world can be engaged, that discomfort can be survived, that effort can lead somewhere, that another person can be trusted to respond. Those lessons go deeper than any single milestone. Because what you are really building is not a baby who performs on time. You are building a human being with stronger internal systems. A human being who can explore because safety exists, who can try because effort feels worthwhile, who can communicate because interaction has meaning, who can recover because distress is not the end of the story. That is the real architecture of development. And once you understand that, something in you changes. You stop grading every week. You stop treating every difference like a threat. You stop chasing visible proof that you are doing enough. And you start noticing what was always there. The longer look before a smile. The stronger push through the arms. The more deliberate reach. The pause before a sound. The way your baby studies your face. The way they try again after failing. These are not small things. These are the signals that matter. So no, your baby may not be late. You may simply be measuring the wrong things. And that is good news. Because once you learn to read development properly, the first year stops feeling like a silent accusation and starts feeling like what it actually is, a season of invisible compounding, quiet intelligence, and deep construction. Not a race to win, a foundation to build. And if you protect that foundation with patience, attention, steadiness, and trust, then in the ways that matter most, your baby is not falling behind at all. They are becoming.